Wish to call to order the December meeting of Public Safety for Rutherford County. It's good to see each and every one of you here this evening. I guess you would call this the Monday night before Christmas, and nothing was stirring but public safety at this time. So at this time, do we begin our agenda? We'll begin with the approval of the minutes, and I'll ask that my Vice Chairman give us a motion on that.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. I've reviewed, there was a revision to the first minute. I've reviewed both and find everything to be in order from the November 28th meeting and move for its approval as submitted.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Commissioner Serino. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. We'll begin first, item 2, radio system report, if there's anything there, or if you want to hold that until we come around, or... Okay, thank you. We'll move on then on down to the Sheriff's report.
Afternoon's population in the jail was 600 inmates. I'd like to update you on the washer and dryers. They've been up and running the last 2 weeks, and we'd like to thank Superintendent Bill Cope and his staff for helping us out while they was down. Chairman, that's the end of my report.
Some of you have seen the report. It's on your iPads. You've heard our report here. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Second by Commissioner McMurray. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The report is approved, and I believe you have a budget amendment.
Yes, sir. This amendment is to correct the pay and classification for a payroll position. We're requesting to take $3,780 from salaries and wages and place it into our accountant bookkeeping line item.
Gentlemen, I believe you have that amendment on your iPad. Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion been made to approve. Commissioner Oliver, have a second. Second. Commissioner James, please call the roll.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
I've got one more thing, Chairman.
Okay, sir.
I'd like to make y'all aware of this morning, Chief of Staff Hennessy, Director Smith, the sheriff, and myself met this morning talking about the leased vehicles versus purchasing the vehicles. We're looking at our numbers, the vehicles that we had coming in this year's budget. We're going to see if we can take and purchase them outright to save us money for all the interest and so forth. But when we get these numbers, if it works out, we'd like to get permission to go ahead and take this to the budget meeting January the 5th and move forward.
Move to approve.
Well, I have a question, just a question. Roughly how many vehicles are you?
We're looking at 20 marked patrol units, 3 unmarked patrol units, 4 admin cars, and 1 crime scene van are included in this.
This is just a report, or?
Yeah, it's just permission. If we move forward, we can take it to budget January 5th.
January 5th.
So she had, what was her motion? She just moved to approve. Did Ms. Oliver move? Well, I'll second that.
Okay. So, Commissioner Oliver, did you make that?
Yes.
Okay.
I move to accept his recommendation to look at purchasing vehicles versus leasing and to forward that to budget.
Okay, then we had the second over here. All right. Mayor?
Yeah, for a little bit of clarification, as this committee will remember, last Thursday night I brought before the commission an example of where we found in the office that there was a serious disparity between purchasing a vehicle outright and the cost associated with leasing that vehicle. I want to thank our finance director for helping me find that. We've been working on this together for the last 3 months, I would say. And so we've sent out an email to the directors and all those departments that purchased through this agreement saying, hey, let's just look at purchasing directly as opposed to leasing. So I believe this is a part of that effort. Is
Yes,
that
sir,
correct?
that's
Exactly. So we'll be back for the full commission for approval, obviously through budget. So this is a continuing of that process. We certainly won't do it unless we're able to say the county a significant amount of money, and we honestly believe we'll be able to demonstrate that. Thank you.
Okay, sir. All right, since we're not going directly into money right now, so we'll just, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Move forward.
Thank y'all. You have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, sir. PAWS?
Good evening. You'll see for the month of November, we had 342 animals come into the shelter. We had a 4.2% euthanasia rate. Overall, our live release rate was 93.2%. Our officers completed out 1,068 calls for the month, traveling 7,500 miles. Fiscal year to date, we've had 2,024 animals into the shelter. Our live release rate has been 92.8%. Officers have completed 6,900 calls, traveling almost 46,000 miles. Our rabies exposure and bite report, if you'll recall, that goes by calendar year versus fiscal year. We had 24 bites reported for the month. One of those was sent for testing. It came back negative. We had 4 other exposures. One of those was sent for testing. It did come back positive. That was a skunk that got into it with a dog, got into the Las Casas zone. And then the last page of the report is just the graph that I give you all to visually see the live release versus euthanasia and other outcomes for the month. And that's my report, sir.
Any questions on the report?
I have one.
Mr. Rather?
I didn't see it on here, and sorry, I didn't take the time to go back and look at last month or the month before. But I heard something the other day that had nothing to do with Rutherford County. It was kind of statewide. That, the pandemic, and now we're moving into inflation. And have you seen a higher number of surrenders, I guess?
For us, due to the staffing issues, we've been on unlimited services for a fair amount of time. Not necessarily seeing an increase per se in the number of calls. Where we have seen our biggest concern is the number of animals once they come into the shelter, the length of stay that they stay in the shelter. And that has been one of the hardest parts. We believe, well, we've done some research with some other shelters, and they're going through the same thing. Intake into shelters is up, and outcomes is down. We believe that may be a direct result of the pandemic, because if you recall at that time, most shelters had basically emptied out, and every place that there was for an animal to go had been filled. So, the options for getting them back out once they enter the shelter has been the toughest that I've seen in my 18 years of doing this.
Well, the story I was listening to talked about the price of dog food and the shots you have to give them, the worming and all that. People are like, hey, do we put food on the table or in the dog bowl?
Right.
And the numbers are going up, according to what I heard statewide.
We have always, even before my time, the commission set aside any donations that comes into PAWS goes into a specific donation line just for PAWS. And even as recently as the last couple of months, the mayor and I have had the discussion about making sure that we keep money in that donation line to be able to move out for emergencies such as that, because we want to be able to keep animals in homes. And it's a whole lot cheaper for us to buy a bag of dog food than it is to take an animal into the shelter. Yes, sir.
Any more questions anyone might have?
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up to what he just stated? When you said the donation line item or whatever, how is the public made aware that there are possible donations available, such as dog food?
They are welcome to come to our office. We have donations that come in from members of the public, typically, which are going to be the dog, cat food, supplies like that. So we keep a supply of that there at the office. They're welcome to come in. They have to show their ID, and they do have to sign a waiver based on that food that they're receiving, but we don't mind helping folks out. Now, we can't be their sole source. Unfortunately, we've had some folks that have tried to take advantage of that. We can't be their complete sole source of food, but we have no problems trying to help folks along.
Commissioner James?
You said the length of stay is getting longer for these animals. What's your average length of stay?
There at one time, we were getting down to length of stay between 6 to 9 days, depending on a cat or a dog, depending on what was going on. I haven't looked at it recently, but I do know our length of stay is up. Like when animals get to the floor, some of those animals stay there for a decent amount of time to where before we were able to turn those animals over much quicker. If you'd like, I'd be happy to bring numbers for that to kind of show you where we were maybe last year at this time versus this year at this time, if you'd like to see that. Okay.
Anything else? Chairman?
Michael, staffing report, how are you doing?
Well, we were doing pretty good. We had all of our tell of two cities. First, we had been keeping some positions open, and then we had some folks leave, and we didn't have kind of be able to backfill that stuff. Well, then we got all these positions filled, and we're kind of having that training issues, and then we've got a couple of folks that determined that it wasn't the right position for them. So we are down 3 officers, 1 vet assistant, and then we have the veterinarian position, the second veterinarian position that's been posted for quite some time that we knew was going to be difficult to fill. So we're getting there, but at least when these couple of folks that left recently, we already had folks that were right behind, so it was kind of like next man up versus having to go out and fill positions. So we are trying to get those other positions filled, so we have that cycle continuing. It's a lot better than it was back in March, but it's definitely not where we want to be. Yes, sir.
Anything else? Have a motion to approve the report.
Move to approve.
Commissioner James makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Have the second. Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Merry Christmas.
You as well.
OSHA? Good evening, sir.
So for the month of November, OSHA report incidents, you have 14. Calendar year, you have 167. OSHA log summary, you have a total recordable 127. Restricted day claims, 65. Lost day claims, 28. Other recordables, 34. Next page on the job injury claims. For 2022, you have a total of 167 compared to 160 2021 and 147 in 2020. Next page, on the job injury incurred dollars. 2022, you have $599,000 compared to 2021, $500,002, and compared to 2022, $772,000. Then the last page, cause of injury, Board of Education had 8, County General had 6. In the County General, you had the County Clerk's Office with 1, Maintenance Department had 1, Sheriff's Department had 3, Solid Waste had 1, for your total of 6. And that's end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Approval of the report.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. McMurray makes a motion to approve. Have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Report is approved.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, sir. Recovery Court.
Here's the Recovery Court report for the month of November. We had a total of 152 current participants, 12 new, 4 graduates, and 0 terminations. That concludes our report.
Mayor?
Ms. Ricks, hi. How long's our waiting list?
Right now,
Can you pull the mic down a little bit? Thank you.
We've got it down to 139.
Okay, something we're going to work on. Thank you.
Questions on the report?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rather.
Second.
Second, Commissioner McMurray. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The report is approved.
Thank you.
Probation.
Good evening. For our November report, we closed out a total of 149 cases, which is equivalent to 134 individuals. We currently supervise 1,078 active cases. Right now, we have 65 people in our groups. For the month of November, we had 22 individuals successfully complete those groups, and we had one that unsuccessfully was discharged from their group. As far as our olive branch goes, we were able to help 7 individuals. 4 of those 7 individuals were homeless. 3 of those 7 were recently released or fallen on a hardship. With our difference in expenditures and our revenue for the month of November, that was $112,731.62. For the month of November, we turned over $10,879 to the clerk's office to be collected for probation fees on payment agreements. Those that failed to enter payment agreements with the clerk's office for the month of November, their probation fees totaled $5,859. So far this fiscal year, we've turned over $46,973 to the clerk's office to collect on payment agreements for probation fees. And so far this fiscal year, we have $34,824 in probation fees that were owed where those individuals failed to enter a payment agreement with the clerk's office. And as of November, we have 10 individuals who have been deemed indigent by the court. And that would be my report for the month of November.
Questions?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Commissioner McMurray. Have a second? Second. Commissioner Oliver. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
Correctional Work Center. Good evening, Superintendent.
In your report, you'll find our December 5th board meeting. No significant changes there. Next will be the medical stats that we introduced last month. You'll see that those are very good. Next will be the work release program, which is going great as usual. Our yearly activity report, population staying about the same. And then you have our Total trash collected, county roads and county trash collected 6,826 pounds. And then on state routes, we picked up 609 bags. And then lastly, the monthly worker report reflecting a total savings to the county using inmate labor, $74,796. That's the end of my report.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Director, in my district area, the other side, so I drove around, seemed to be clean, and thank you for your support and report in that area.
Thank you for recognizing that. Thank you.
Other comments? Questions? Motions? Motion approved, Commissioner Rather. Second, Commissioner Oliver. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Juvenile detention. Good evening.
Good evening. Before you have our report for the month of November. I can additionally add that Madison County as well as Montgomery County, we received those checks today in the mail. The other ones, we don't expect to have any problems with those. The report is usually prepared before the checks have a chance to come in. As far as the rest of the report, I will happily answer any questions that you may have. Our next board meeting is scheduled for January 9th at 1 o'clock. And I should have mentioned last month, and didn't get a chance to do it, that Rick's Barbecue graciously made sure that our young folks had a little something extra for November. They supplied chicken fingers, macaroni and cheese, green beans, cookies, and sweet tea, and the kids loved it. But beyond that, I'll be happy to answer any specifics that you have.
Mr. James?
You said that was Rick's Barbecue did that?
Yes, they did.
We should thank them.
Let me ask, during like holidays like this, do you see a change in your population or?
Not so much in population, maybe behavior. We have a lot of young folks that obviously would rather be somewhere else than with us, but we've stayed about the same.
Other questions for the director?
Chairman, although I'm hurt by the lack of an invitation to come eat Rick's Barbecue, I'll make the motion to approve the report.
Motion made to approve the report.
Second.
Second, Commissioner James. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Report is approved.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. Emergency Services, Public Safety Report. Director?
Chairman, Mayor, Committee. Hopefully you received our report from November the 18th to December the 18th of emergency management. Inside that report, it gives us an update on our radio system, also our what we've been doing behind the scenes, our responses, and also our dispatch number of calls that we receive in our communications center. If you have any questions, I'll be free to answer those. Also, keep in mind that I want to just go ahead and mention this. We're talking about some pretty frigid temperatures in the next couple of days. I have reached out with Murfreesboro talking about how we're sheltering the homeless because it's going to get critically cold for them. We do have plans in place, and also in the event, our staff will be contacting the Red Cross tomorrow to make sure that we have firm numbers in the event we have some kind of power outages. But it's going to get pretty cold, and we want to make sure that our people are safe.
I appreciated those reports we received during the flooding and things we had going on this past month. Those come in handy when you let us know that the possibility of flooding. I have areas out my way that it does happen. It's the first time, you know, after we go through a drought and then all of a sudden you see a sign comes up, water across road, that we hadn't seen in a long time.
Yes, sir. And we were lucky this time as far as the flooding of roads. We have our typical targets that our highway department looks. The county portion of our unincorporated areas of our county probably receives the most road closures just due to low-head, the slab bridges and things like that. And that's what pretty much our targets were this last time. But we'll try to keep you posted on these road closures and hopefully get that out to the public. We have some tools there that we can utilize, and GIS helps us out a lot with that.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Oliver?
I move to accept the report.
Motion made to accept the report.
Second.
Second. Commissioner McMurray, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, report is approved. And I wish the cold front hadn't come through here so quick here in this room. So. All right, emergency medical.
Good evening. For the month of November, we did a total of 3,383 calls with a response time of 7.6. We had an increase in the number of DOAs for the month, and part of that was they've kind of changed the way she's doing the reporting. The medical examiner kind of took care of all the death certificates that were with cremations, and now that's going through the medical examiner's office. So that number more than doubled, but Denise wanted me to tell you it was the cremations is kind of what made that go up. We had 34 autopsies for the month, and about this time last year, we talked about the autopsy expense. It was like $1,895, and then it went to $2,100, and we just got a notice at the end of the month that beginning February 1st, it's going up to $2,300 per autopsy. So 2 increases in 11 months. We collected $1,079,088 for the month. And then the next page is some community relations and medical coverage. And then on the convalescent side, we did 457 calls, collected 91,530. And then the next few pages are some reports back from Lifelight and some thank you notes, and that's my report.
Okay. Questions on the report? Mr. James.
Did they explain what the second increase in 11 months was for? Did they itemize that at all?
They said that they've increased due to market conditions, labor shortage, and other factors. Also, the cost of autopsy supplies has increased due to inflation and supply shortage.
Some of it could also be to the fact, if you looked at our numbers here of deaths, that's pretty much across Middle Tennessee, due to population increasing too. That's a lot comes from that direction.
They service 52, 53 counties, so they're not struggling for business.
But in previous meetings, over the last 4 years or better, now 5 years, this is a prediction that we've we've seen. We knew we were headed in this direction, especially within this county.
Question, that kind of lends to my question, because I was going to ask about the impact on the budget that you currently have with the 2 increases. Was that, since you said predicted, was that factored in, or how is that resolved?
And this is 2 years in a row they've had the increases during the fiscal year, and it has 0 impact on my budget, but it has a large impact on the mayor's budget because he's the one that pays for them.
So then, I guess my question is there a way to kind of put a buffer in there, since we see there's a history of increase, so that the budget will be there? I'm just curious about how that works.
And to be honest with you, that's kind of just a guess. I mean, we look back on the history, and it's really just we have no idea how many autopsies we'll need for the month. You know, each case is different, so.
Yes, sir.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner? Well, let me add, there are several things in the budget, this being one of them, that we really don't know. We estimate, especially on the expenditure side. So we do put buffers in there. For example, we put some buffers in there for fuel. Sometimes they're enough, sometimes they're not. We also are conservative when we estimate property tax revenue, so hopefully that comes in 1% or 2% above where we budget, and so that will cover some of these overages. And one of the things we'll do at the end of the fiscal year is bring a budget amendment to kind of move where some of those conservative estimates were, to cover some things that came in that were unforeseen. But we do kind of budget for some unforeseen stuff.
And something you might want to remember, what we ran into with COVID, that something was totally unexpected too, with the number of deaths that you had there. Well, as our health director told us the other night, we are now in a tri-pandemic. So we don't know there either. So that's just something in healthcare, you really don't know how to call. And yeah, as has been said here, we try to work that direction. A lot of these you can't call. Over here at our hospital, they are now, I think are they up totally as a trauma too?
They have put that program on pause over the last couple of weeks. They've ran into some difficulties with the physicians, so they have, Mr. Ferguson described it to me as they haven't scrapped the program, it's just on a pause.
Well, it's on pause. That for us, that's good, I guess you would say. But if whenever it goes back, whenever you go to a trauma 2, that means any deaths within that hospital becomes ours. So that's something we'll have to deal with too. Mayor? So,
Commissioner, the mayor's office has been aware of this situation for a little while. And so it has come to our attention that as a result of COVID, where it put this county, and indeed all of the counties in Tennessee, in a rather vulnerable and precarious position about how do we respond to a catastrophic situation. Unfortunately, where you might have an extraordinarily high death count, how do you manage that situation? It exposed a vulnerability inside Rutherford County that didn't just exist with Rutherford County, it exists across Tennessee. I want to make that really clear. But it illustrated that, and you may not know this, but there are what's called 5 regional forensic centers in Tennessee. There's one in Memphis, one in Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Tri-Cities. And so the forensic center that is in Nashville handles over 50 counties, by far and away the vast majority of the population in Tennessee, certainly by county. As a result, and so we've seen 2 price increases recently, and now you've seen the announcement of the most recent price increase. Unfortunately, with that price increase, there doesn't come with it a commensurate increase in quality. And so we have some other issues regarding the quality of care, the nature of the care in forensic science, their ability to respond, their ability to work with law enforcement, and just the fact that Rutherford County has over 350 autopsies that are required every single year that we're sending to Nashville. So I'm not at liberty to say right tonight, but I will very shortly. Be glad to bring to your attention what we believe is a very long-range solution that solves this problem. And I'm excited about working on it both in Nashville and in here. And so I just want you to know there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. Okay? So thank you very much.
Other questions? Commissioner Rather?
Chairman, this idea of having a forensic center here has been tossed around for the last 4 years I've been around, a little over 4. Rutherford County's not going to get smaller in population. It may slow down a little bit because of economics and other factors, but since it was brought up, I looked at we could actually save neighboring counties some money, but then we generate and provide a service that's much needed. And I do not want this committee, nor the commission or the mayor's office to, and I think you've already answered this in a roundabout way, I don't want to let that go because.
Well, Commissioner, let me just, if I may, you're over the target. And I want to get all, the mayor's office wants to get all the ducks in a row so that when we make an announcement on how we're going to proceed, what the goal is, that I've got an announcement with the details in place, but you're over the target. You're welcome.
And it's been more like 15 years. Carl Hudgens been working on this for a long time.
We've been duck hunting a long time, and he's finally lining them up, so. Other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I so move.
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner James. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? I believe you have a budget amendment?
Yes, sir. Want to move $300,000 out of the paraprofessional line item into the part-time line item. We used to pay part-time. We would pay regular rate for the first 8 hours, and then anything over that was overtime, so it came out of the overtime budget. Now we're not paying overtime until somebody reaches 40 hours, so it kind of put a strain on that line item.
Seeing the budget? Questions on the budget? Motion on the budget amendment.
I have a question. Can you explain it to me again? You said, I mean, because generally you pay overtime after 40 hours.
Yeah,
so you were doing something different for your part-timers? Is that what you're saying?
Whenever we brought back part-time employees, and it's been number of years ago, we wanted to do something a little different with pay to be able to make it lucrative for somebody to come work here. And we wanted them to work the whole 24-hour shift instead of a 12-hour shift. So we paid straight time for 8 hours and then time and a half for anything over 8 that they work consecutively. But that, when we changed the schedule, that rate got changed, and it was not competitive to surrounding areas. So we changed the rate, which meant we couldn't really pay overtime after 8 anymore either.
Did that answer your question?
Move to approve.
Motion approved. Commissioner Rather, second. Commissioner Oliver. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a Merry
sir.
Christmas.
Fire and Rescue.
For the month of November, we had 654 calls. Year to date, we've run 6,634 calls. There's 734 MVAs and 75 structure fires. The total countywide, including the volunteers, is 108 structure fires, 159 brush fires, 112 illegal burns, 120 vehicle fires, 1,262 MVAs, and 35 with extrication. Fire alarms were 308, and then for a total of 8,159 calls. The next sheet is showing what we turn into codes department for structures that were damaged by fire. And the next sheet is the fire department division fire marshal's office report. The next one, Assistant Chief Sanders, when he came up before y'all and got permission to issue charge for permits for commercial building, he said he would come back in a year with that report, and the following pages is kind of showing you what the county fire department has collected on permits. The next sheet is the illegal burn report. And we've finished in our second week. We've hired 12 laterals from other departments. When we hired them, they made a comment that if our department was half as great as the video that they've seen, they'd really be happy. And I think after 2 weeks of training we put them through, they realized that we're exactly what we said we were. They really enjoyed it, and we've worked them pretty hard. But they're going to have this be the last week. And we were going to have a live burn Friday, but because temperatures are going to be in the 15s, we decided to do it Wednesday so everything would freeze up and nobody would slip and fall and get hurt. So that concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Chief, I was looking at the all county fire total volume, the total call volume. The volunteer animal fire department is yellowed out. Down below it says did not turn in a report, but the numbers are in there. How'd you get the numbers if they?
I don't have their numbers. That's the numbers without their numbers for this month.
This is, am I correct? This is now the second month that I feel like I've seen that's been highlighted.
Yes, sir.
So is it optional?
Is what optional?
Optional that they make the report?
They have a county contract with the county fire department to turn in those stats every month. And I didn't get one last month or this month.
Other questions?
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve. Commissioner James. Second. Commissioner Oliver. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, report is approved.
I hope y'all have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now go to item 13. You'll see this on your agenda. It says Public Safety Buildings Discussion. We may have a little more than just discussion. We have some directive that has been given to us that has come from the Budget Committee and Budget and Finance that's been sent back down to us. And we're going to go into deeper information on that. I think at this time I'm going to ask that our EMS, our emergency management, and our fire chief come forward this time and come up here. And as we go into this, I think I'm going to ask for an explanation through our mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when I was sworn in on September 1st, I was proud to take over a budget allocation from the County Commission for 6 public safety buildings at approximately $6.5 to $7 million apiece. It was my assumption in inheriting that worthy cause that this body had decided to, in a proactive way, move toward a long-term professional firefighting EMS service throughout the county, and which I concur with. I think a county of 362,000 in population as of the April census estimate from the United States Census Bureau shows that we will be the 4th largest county in Tennessee by this time next year. And with our rapid growth and with the unique challenges that creates, I've always believed that public safety, first responders, should be of the utmost importance for this body and for the mayor's office. And indeed, this committee, if not the most important, is certainly one of the most important committees of this body. However, it's also come to my attention that there are some in our community, and even maybe some on the county commission, who do not share that vision, and it would be extremely helpful for the mayor if I understood in very concrete terms the commitment this body would have toward that goal, not just in the form of funding for the much needed public safety buildings, but a vote of confidence toward that particular end, that we are moving from a volunteer service, which has served this county extremely well over the years, extraordinarily well, but we're moving from a volunteer service to a professional service. Exactly what does that mean? And so I've asked Chairman Reed to put this on the agenda for discussion, because I want this body and the county commission, the full body, as a vote of recommendation that that is indeed what we're doing when we invest $40 million in public safety buildings. And to be sure, those 5, 6 public safety buildings, that's just the first step. I mean, as this county grows, we can reasonably expect the expansion of those services. And so what does that look like? Are we expanding a volunteer service, or are we expanding a professional service? Because if we are, then that's 2 entirely different financial equations. And I think it's important that we have this conversation in this body, and it's my hope, Mr. Chairman, that we will have either a confidence vote on moving, that we'll have a confidence vote on moving forward with a professional service that reflects the financial commitment that you've already made to the tune of $40 million. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back to you.
Okay. What has happened to us with the buildings in particular is the fact that as we finish up the Rockville and the Kittrell buildings, they are coming in within budget. And that's where we're seeing those coming in. But now, as we go into the other buildings, primarily the Walter Hill and Las Casas that are coming up at this point, what has come back in the bids for those now, they are over budget. And I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.2, 1.3 piece. That's million, 1.2, 1.3 million a piece. So, you know, I'd have to say, after what we've done in experiencing this, when we first come up with the idea, if you remember, they were somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 million. And then when you take 3 years of going through this, they went to 6 million all of a sudden when we got ready to build. And then they got to the point of 7 million when we actually built those buildings. Well, now we're going on into these others, and we're taking bids now for those, and it looks like with the economy, with everything else and supply, we're now into a situation where those are looking at something over 8 million as we try to build those. So when this come before Budget and Finance the other night, they wanted us to decide to look at what we want to do with this, because we're looking at now 4 more buildings out there to build, and the money that we have set aside for this, there's not that much money when you total it up from the COVID money. And I'll call it COVID money. I won't go for the long total definition. So discussion was held during budget the other night. What do we do? And one of the decisions at that time was that we go ahead with Walter Hill, Las Casas, Christiana, and with the current building that we're wanting to do out towards Highway 96 and the out near the Burgess property out there where we have already been offered the property there to build it on, it said for that building right there, which was to be our last building anyway, we're not cutting it out, we're just slowing down on it because we'd have to do that anyway, and we would delay that one, I guess is what you'd say. We'll delay that and look for other methods to pay for it and come up with additional money to help work it out. The mayor has some ideas as far as finding that money, and that's where we are right now. And what budget is wanting us to do in that area is to come back with a recommendation to them that we go on with that. And the reason I'm saying that they're wanting the recommendation now is we've got to go ahead and lock in some contracts on going ahead building these others before they go up more. And that's currently where we are. We're trying to get ahead of the situation that you're seeing out there all across everywhere else. That when you delay, as far as interest rates are going everywhere else and other people's cost, it will increase the cost on all these buildings. But now, I want it understood that as far as our property out towards the Amarillo, we're not saying we're not going to do it. We're just saying we are delay that right now, and it may not even be delayed. That's correct. I mean, we're not, because it was to be not next year, but possibly the next year that we would do that. So that's what we're saying. We're hoping to come up with that money and that idea by the time that when it comes up to build, that we will have that answer and where we go from there. So that's what we're looking for in that area. And then you've also heard what the mayor has said here about how we take care of personnel within those departments. Rockvale, that was already determined that that would be full-time serviced. Within the last budget, those firefighters are in there. The Kittrell, there's already within that budget to do those at Kittrell, to go into that one. Now, Walter Hill was already a manned station, so that one is already within the budget that we're doing. The thing is, Las Casas, we'd have to come up with the next budget coming up for a manned fire station there. Christiana would be a question when there. If we want to make that a fully manned station, it would have to come up possibly within the next budget, and then we'd work that direction. The costs per station to fully man them with fire, you're looking at something around $950, $980, $950, $980,000. And that's a 15-man, that's 3 shifts, 5 per shift is what we're talking about doing there. Now, I know some of you say, well, what about what we had in plan for the volunteers? When we initially set this up, go back 3 years, we had volunteer departments that at that time were saying that they would work with us and man these shifts. But if you'll look at what we're having right now, we're having a difficult time, like everybody else, of coming up with that manpower to do what we're wanting to do. So we're looking at some ways of maybe working both ways, working in that direction, working where we man those departments with full-time shifts. But we're also talking about, as far as the volunteers, any volunteer department that wants to come under the direction of the county, we work with them. We take them within us, we train them, we work with them if they're willing to work with us. So I think, Mayor, is that what we're seeing and where we want to go there? But it's brought back to public safety to see where we go from that direction.
And so what I'm asking from this committee tonight is a vote of confidence that we are moving toward a professional firefighting service for Rutherford County. Because there is some ambiguity and some confusion that we're going to have a volunteer force or a full or a hybrid version or something like that. And you know, I'm willing to discuss and debate that issue tonight, which is what we're supposed to do. But the mayor's office needs a clear, unambiguous directive from the county commission that if we're going to spend $40 million, then we're going to move in the direction of a full-time firefighting force in Rutherford County. We'll be the fourth largest county, folks, here pretty quick.
Is there a way you could put up the map showing which the sequence and order of the builds for us to look at, because we don't have it on the iPad? I'd like to see the sequence.
Well, I don't know.
It sounds like
I can get you a map if you want it, but what we're talking about is Rockvale. You know where Rockvale is, on Highway 99, right there across from the school complex. That's going to open first. The second will be Kittrell, which is out Old Woodbury Highway, almost to Reedville, to the Reedville community. Third and four will be Walter Hill and Las Casas, coming online about the same time. The Walter Hill is right there in the Walter Hill community, just north of the landfill. Las Casas is right there in the Las Casas community on Highway 96, close to the convenience center, the old school. Christiana, where would be Christiana exactly? Behind the elementary, okay, that's right, behind the elementary school on 231, and then Del Webb, which is the former Burgess property, is on Highway 96 going toward Franklin on the left, just after you pass the city limits. And so that's the sequence.
Commissioner Wade, we've always tried to explain, if you took your hand, which looks a whole lot like Rutherford County, they're basically in a circle of the county, is what they're designed for.
And if I might add, the placement of these is not by accident, but it gives us the maximum coverage within a specific period of response time. And I believe, Chief Farley, we can, with those 6, we can respond to what, 95, 96% of the county in a certain period of time. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Everything is based on ISO insurance premiums, and every home that's within 5 miles of a fire station gets a lower ISO, gets a lower insurance premium. And of course, it's even closer. It's even better if they get a hydrant within 1,000 feet of their home. So what we looked at, when CTAS did a report on the number of fires in the county, and they determined which was the hot spots. Kittrell is a hot spot. Out toward Anvil is a hot spot. And so because of to reduce the cost of, you know, property and buying property, we decided to put them on county property, especially at schools. And so what we've got it set up is that everything is within 5 miles. We'll pretty much cover 90% of the county, which if we can do that with the paid system, we have I think it's 8. It'd be 8 stations, paid stations, and it would cover 90% of the county. And by doing that, our ISO rating right now is a 5. And I believe with a fully manned service, we can drop that to a 3. Now, when you drop from an ISO 5 to an ISO 3, you're saving homeowners hundreds of dollars on insurance premiums. Murfreesboro just dropped theirs to a 1. That's the best you can get. And I really believe that that's something we've been working for. We actually, when we took over the county fire department, we dropped it from a 8 to a 5, just with two stations. And I believe as we continue to move this on and get bigger, I believe we can drop those premiums even lower.
I have a question. I know you just said that Kittrell and Almoville, like the two hot spots. Is there a reason why the 96 property is the last on the list over Las Casas and Christiana?
Well,
because I'm getting calls all the time.
A lot of that's reason is because it's Old Nashville Highway, and those houses were built back when the Stewart Air Force Base was really active, and CUD has helped us by putting out a lot more hydrants out that way. It just, and a lot of them are near homes. It just seems like that's a hot spot from time to time. But with the station on 1 Mile Lane, they were looking at putting a station at the Anvil Road, right there across from where the convenience center is. And the issue they had is that through Mike Hughes and them, the county engineer, said that the soil was not good enough for septic. So in other words, we couldn't put it there. So we got to looking, and they were to develop the Del Well property. So I approached the last mayor, Ketron, and told him that if you look at this map, that location is within 5 miles of the station on Elmville Road. If you look at the 1 Mile Lane station, they kind of overlap there, so that gives a better coverage. And out around Coleman Hill Road, out 96, it gives them a lot better coverage than they've ever had. So it's just, that's just kind of the way we set them up like that, to give the best coverage to the county, because it really benefits people's homeowners insurance. To give you some of my thoughts on it, paid firefighters provide fully trained and staff at every fire station. The volunteer system is not sustainable. I've been in the fire service for 33 years. 19 of those was a volunteer. And it was served us well, but it's unsustainable now, because if you look up, if you Google the word volunteer firefighter, you'll find, and Chris Clark did this, you'll find article after article about across the nation, it's down 80%. A fire doubles in size every 60 seconds. Paid firefighters are out the door within seconds of being dispatched and arrive on the scene within minutes. Volunteer system has to respond to the station, get the truck, you don't know how many people are responding, and then get there. And I have seen, and since 2010, we took this over. If you remember, I told you in 2010 we had 1,300 calls. You see the call volume now. And I have seen us save homes that would, the roof would have been gone by the time we got there before, where they get there and they contain it to one room. That's how important the time is we get there. Rutherford County firefighters are trained advanced EMTs, and we have paramedics on the truck. And they provide the same medical care as EMS. Rutherford County firefighters have hundreds of hours of training in fire suppression, vehicle extrication, hazardous materials, building collapse, swift water rescue, and our teams have saved several people from their homes that are flooded. And we've some of the commissioners have been up here for years. We remember last March when we actually saved a father and his daughter who was in the car, submerged under the water, and our guys went out there and while they were underwater, busted the glass and got them out. So we've saved lots of people with our swift water response. And like the mayor said, there's 365,000 people living in Rutherford County, with 28 people per day moving here. And so I think the current system is unsustainable. Paid firefighters provide an increase in medical coverage in the entire county. And the reason I say that, if we put these two fire and EMS stations together, the ambulance gets our call. They respond to that call. Well, if there's another call in that area, then the fire truck can dispatch with paramedics and EMTs on it and provide advanced life-saving efforts to that patient while another ambulance is responding out of district or from another station. It's even more so if the EMS unit is on another call. Like I said, with paid full-time firefighters, all these new stations, we can lower ISO rating from a class 5 to class 3. And like I said, it's saving hundreds of dollars on our annually on people's insurance premiums. So that's the benefit of the citizens by having a fully paid and ready fire department. And I can attest with our special operations, there's nothing in this county we can't handle. I mean, we consider ourselves an all hazards fire department. And these guys have been here, can tell you we've saved people from caves. We have high angle rescue, rope rescue. You name it, we can do it. Just like the guy in the video said, you name it, we can do it, and we respond. And we have a tremendous employees and that are go-getters. And I just can't say enough about my guys and girls, and they're the real deal. And I think that's the way we need to head. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you may have any.
Mr. James?
As you've known, for the last couple of months, I've come out and I've participated with you at several events, and I've been a big cheerleader for having the countywide fire service. I see the need. I appreciate it. But here's the pickle that I'm in. My district is over 90% residential. Your halls are few and far between in that, and now the one that's going to be built closest to us is the last on the list, and that's an if you get to it. So I put all that on top of it, and then add on the fact that Anvil Fire Department, the volunteer service, for my entire 40+ years out there, has been just great for us. You know, I see the coming need, but I need to get over that hurdle because it feels like it's just going to do two things. It's going to piss off our volunteer firefighters while we're waiting for who knows when for this one to be built for us. And then it's going to kind of anger my constituents for being last on the list at the same time.
Well, you're going to have 5 stations or 8 stations that can respond in that direction. Where right now we got 3. If we have a fully engulfed structure fire, it takes all stations we got right now. There's nothing else coming. So if we have an entrapment in a vehicle, somebody's going to cut loose from that fire scene to go respond to that. So I see the need to increase it. And I mean, you can only build them one at a time unless we can get more contractors building them. But there's going to be a lot more access coming that way. And the station on Fortress is within minutes of that area. And there's nothing to say we can't, the volunteers come together, there's nothing to say we can't put them in that station at Alma on 1 Mile Lane and run a lot of people out of there.
Chief, let me ask a question. What's the status of the Almaville station currently?
What do you mean the status?
Is how many volunteers are working on that station?
I really don't want to be degrading, but a lot of times when we respond, if we get a volunteer respond, we may get 1 or 2 people on the truck. And that's all of them. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. People just are not volunteering now. It's like one of the chiefs told their board of directors, you know, people used to join volunteer fire departments to get the experience so they could get a job. Well, the problem is now we're hiring people off the street, Murfreesboro is too, and we're training them because we've hired just about every volunteer firefighter that wanted to be a firefighter because we've grown so much. And so we just hired 19 guys that have no experience. We're going to put them through a 12-week rookie school. So, and I say that to say that the current system is not sustainable because, and it's not their fault. They've done a great job for years, but it's just hard to get volunteers because, and I use this example. When's the last time you went into a restaurant and there's tables sitting everywhere empty, but they wouldn't seat you because they didn't have enough people working? Well, if people don't work, they're not going to volunteer, and it's hard work. It's a blue-collar job. I mean, these guys work, they sweat, they're pulling, it's constant physical labor when they're fighting fire, when they're cutting a vehicle or whatever. And I challenge you to look up volunteer firefighter, and you'll find, Chris sent out an email the other day. It had like 7 different articles across the county, across the nation, of people needing volunteer firefighters and going to a paid service because the volunteers can't sustain what they would have in the past. So.
Question, please. Help me out, because I did not hear that you were going to take that public safety building off the table. I thought you were going to look for alternate funding.
Let me answer that, if I may. Thank you, Commissioner. That's exactly correct. We're talking about pausing that funding, not delaying it, but pausing the funding. We've got a financial situation where we fully funded and appropriated number 1 and 2. That's Rockvale and Kittrell. They're funded, came in budget. Numbers 3 and 4, which are Las Casas and Walter Hill, are 1.2, 1.3 over budget. So we need to find that budget money. The situation with Del Webb, which is on Highway 96, which Commissioner James is referring to, wasn't funded with ARPA money, which is the COVID money that Chairman P is referring to. That was coming out of our budget, okay? And that wasn't until 24, 25 anyway. So that's forward thinking a good 1.5 to 2 years. So one of the motions that's going to be asked for tonight is to the motion to pause Del Webb and take some of the money from the Del Webb and move that forward into these coming months so that we can go ahead and fund Walter Hill and Las Casas. I don't believe, Commissioner James, it's going to delay it. It may, but I don't believe so, and I'm going to work diligently to ensure that it does not. But we just need to buy a little time, and we've got the time with the Del Webb. So we're not delaying it. We're certainly not suspending it. It's more, I would say it's more of a pause because of the funding that's unique to Del Webb as opposed to the other 5. Does that help?
This is the way they were scheduled to begin with. When we asked for the study, and I'll say we asked for a study of where fire stations would be needed within this county, and that was asked for, I guess, under Mayor Burgess. And Mayor, it ended up in Mayor Ketron, but it started, I think, Mayor Burgess when we first started asking. And we wanted this study done to say, okay, where do we need these stations, and what is needed first, what's needed second, where they are needed in there. So when they come out, where they are going right now is where that study basically put where the problem was. That one in Rockville is there due to the fact there are no fire stations in Rockville. There used to be, but they started having problems with volunteers a long time ago. I think the chief walks in and tells this chief from out there at Rockville, says, I'm the only one there, and we can't operate the station.
That happened in 2011.
So there hasn't been one there since 2011. So when they did the study, that started where we started going, where they are actually needed. And so that's how those are set up.
To give you an example, I've got paid firefighters on my department that still volunteer for Kittrell, still volunteer for Annville, and still volunteer for Christiana. But, and I won't say which one, but when one of those stations, the guy's working with us, they don't respond at all because they don't have nobody. That's the situation we're in. And they're trying to get volunteers, but it's just, I mean, it's down nationwide.
I understand that. I also understand what you're saying, and that even the scheduling, the pre-scheduling, that came in before my time here. But I have to say something and fight for my my district, my guys. So I have to at least be the voice.
Absolutely, totally understand
this seat.
that.
So, but with that, I'd also like to kind of a clarification. Any idea what kind of pause timeline you're looking at?
We're only talking about a pause in the funding at this point. We're not talking about a pause in when we would, in the scheduling for it to be constructed. I want to make that very clear. There's a pause in the funding, and there's a pause in the schedule for construction. So because it wasn't slated to come up until 24-25 budget year, it gives us some time to find the funds to reallocate back towards, so there isn't a pause or a delay in construction, if that makes any sense. So it's not like we're pushing this out till 26, 27 or anything like that. All we need is from this body is the vote to pause the funding so that we can move a portion of that funding so that we can get the funding for Walter Hill, Christiana that are 1.3 or something like that a piece over budget.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
No, I'm glad you did.
Clarify the scheduling windows so that it doesn't say it was paused and then all of a sudden it never shows back up. It's just like a line item move.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I were to find out there would have to be a pause in the schedule for construction, I promise you, like any other commission who represents that district that a public safety center is going to go into, you'll be the first to know. I would come to you first.
Commissioner, let me say, I remember when the first time I presented these buildings before the full commission, I remember getting a question over here, where are you going to get the money? And at that time, I had no idea where that money was coming from, but I knew I was going to get the money and we were going to build these buildings. And I was fortunate enough to have individuals like Commissioner Rather and Sereno and Commissioner Phillips out here had the same want and desire for the county to do so. And I feel like we still have that want and desire to get Annville their building too. I mean, it's not gone, and we're still going to do that. I know when somebody come up to me during the race, Mayor, and they said, well, what's going to happen to these public safety buildings? I said, nothing. I said, we are still going to do them. And I think that's what the mayor is saying here. He still wants to do them. The only thing he's wanting to do is do them right. We want to do them right, and we want to do them for the benefit. And it's not that anybody is saying anything negative against the volunteers. I mean, we've all have depended on them. They've been the ones that shown up there. But now we're having to look at, okay, what are we going to do here? And as I said in my initial statement here, we want them to come within us too and be a part of us. And as far as them being on board, we want them to be with us too.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, and then Mr. McMurray.
Thank you. Let me make this as simple as I know how to make it. We do it all the time in the school. Borrow from one project or to increase. Don't delay the buildings. We now come up with the funding at a later date. Never, in my memory, have done something outside of the school budget. The report that we get every month that lists all of our building projects within the school system is similar to what we're having right now. So we're borrowing from one to complete something that's already on the schedule, and when it comes time to fund that other one, we'll come up with the money, even if we have to borrow the money. So pause is the right word. The delay is the wrong word. It will not be delayed if this commissioner has anything to do about it, that mayor has anything to do about it, and that chairman has anything to do about it. Let me go ahead and say that this is situation that we've been working for, help me, Chief Farley, like 15 years. How long have you been with the county?
I was hired in 2008 for emergency management to be a fire coordinator to train and coordinate the volunteers. In 2010, Mayor Burgess decided it was time to create a county fire department. So we brought Rutherford Volunteer Rescue Squad, Salem Blackman, and then Southeast Rutherford together for 1 year in before 2010, and created a county fire department using volunteers. And then later that year, Rock Bell came to me and said, man, I have nobody, so I want to give y'all Rock Bell. And so we've been since 2010. And the first 12 employees we hired at Barfield, Commissioner Phillips come out there and helped us interview. And I think he was so impressed with the quality of people we were hiring and be able to get, that he was very satisfied with what we were to obtain. I can promise you this, I'll say it here tonight, we need every one of these stations. Every one of them, in my opinion, and the one at Del Webb is just as important as the first one, in my opinion, because we've got to have coverage in this county, and that in the county, as you know, out 96 and 99 is houses everywhere. If there's a piece of dirt, they're putting a house on it, and we just got to have better protection.
Let me just kind of follow up with that and say that we spend 78% of our budget on the school system, and that's a lot of money. But how much more important anything other than the safety of 100% of the citizens of the county? And we need to be spending some funds as it relates to brick and mortar to upgrade our systems, to buy new equipment, which we are on a regular basis. So the cost is going to go up, just like the cost of education goes up every single solitary year. Building a school, part that we borrow money for. Funding to operate that school, we don't borrow money for, we increase our budget. Cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5 million to operate a high school, okay? So that's the process that we're going through right now in public safety. But in our school system, we need to do it, and we need to support public safety. So that's what's happening and always has been in the school system, but that's what's happening and beginning to happen right now. And we've been working toward full-time safety employees since the early 2000s. And let me just kind of follow up on that. We've supported our volunteers by buying new equipment for them, a $250,000 truck, and giving it to those folks, what's going to happen to those trucks? Are they coming back to us?
They'll still be utilized at those stations. We just have people at those stations. In 1990, the county bought 14 fire trucks, and every volunteer got a brand new fire truck. In 1999, they bought 14 more fire trucks, and every volunteer department got a fire truck. So we own the biggest majority of the equipment in the stations. And the county has bought turnouts. They bought this last budget year before y'all came on, they bought turnouts for the volunteers. Every truck's got vehicle extrication tools on it. And I mean, and we provide training. And like I say, if Mayor Carr, if we do what he wants to do, these volunteers would just come under us, and we'll still utilize them. Anybody who wants to volunteer and meet the standard of training and show up are welcome. Really, to be honest with you, it would be more advantageous to them because they can schedule a time they can come and volunteer instead of just responding from the house, and they'll get a lot more. They get a lot more experience and a lot more education if they're on the truck for a certain amount of time, responding to calls because we're always busy. Then they can respond from home to get a truck. They're already on the truck, and they'll get a lot more paid, what the experience is as far as our paid guys have.
I think budget asked this committee to look at pausing the Amiable situation and transferring those funds so that we can finish the other buildings on schedule. And that's what they're recommending. And I don't have a vote in this committee, but I would recommend that that be the motion that come out of this committee. And
I so move.
So, just for a second, I want to clarify, Commissioner, if I may. I leave it to the chairman, but there are two things that I would like for this committee to consider. Number one is somebody to make the motion as worded by Chairman Phillips. The second would be a separate motion, but would be a motion from this committee to affirm the direction of a full-time firefighting first responders force for Rutherford County. So that would be, they would be two separate motions. One would go to budget, which would be the finance piece on pausing Del Webb for the purpose of financing Walter Hill and Las Casas, and the second one would be go to the full commission in the form of a recommendation for a full-time firefighting force in Rutherford County.
that motion in my mind should be pausing the funding, but not delaying the actual schedule.
The building. Did I hear?
Yes, you
that
did.
That was the motion you made. I thought I heard it over here. I was looking around this forest right here.
Yes, sir. I move that we pause the funding for Del Webb, but not delay the building, in order to complete Walter Hill and Las Casas building projects.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Further discussion? Madam Chairman, call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick discussion. I had a constituent ask the question, this is just a question, is there a problem like combining the fire and what was it, fire and EMS, putting them in the same building to save on cost? That's been brought up before, sorry.
What you want
to? The answer to that is that's exactly what the plan is.
I just want to make
Excellent
sure that's on
question.
record.
Thank you.
Make sure that's on record.
To give you a little background too, what was discussed when they talked about these buildings, if we ever have another pandemic, we can actually set up in these stations and have people in the community, especially the elderly, come to those stations and get the shots instead of going through State Farm building. That's another reason for these buildings being like they are.
These buildings, some of you may not, and I'm sure you haven't been in those discussions, each one of these buildings have been equipped. They have a mezzanine in them, a 1,600 square foot mezzanine in them that contains refrigeration units where they can handle vaccines, things of that type, where they can keep up with everything like that. And that's what they were designed for. In fact, just this weekend, I was with some senior citizens around out in my neighborhood and whatever, and they actually made the statement, said, you know, if we had something out here where I could go and get vaccinated and things of that type, I would do that, but said, I'm not going into Murfreesboro to the health department to get that done. I said, wonderful, we got it right out here. They said, oh, I go over here. So it's going to be there. And that's what we're doing at all these stations. That's going to become, that's why they are named. They're not named the Rockville Fire Station or the Kittrell Fire Station or whatever. They are named the Rockville Public Health and Safety. That's what they're called. That's what it's going to be doing. We ready for this motion? Call the roll.
Commissioner McMurray,
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and I think now we're discussing this other motion that we've been talking about, or the opportunity to make that motion. Commissioner James.
The other one on the table is to continue our direction of making a full-fledged, full-time county fire department, correct? I so move.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner McMurray and Commissioner Oliver. We got a third. And a third, and numerous thirds. Call the roll.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners, and we will send this on to Budget and Finance from this committee. Any other business?
Chairman, if I could, I just want to say I brought up the Forensic Center for a reason. I think we're there. And the vote that we just made, we've been there for quite a while, and it's needed. It is needed so desperately, and lives will be saved because of the vote we took place. If the commission, it goes through committees and to the commission, lives will be saved. And that's more important than anything. In my book, that's why I'm on this committee, want to stay on this committee. So I just want to make that comment. We're going to be the fourth largest, which means we're going to be bigger than 91 other counties. If we're going to be that big, we have to act that big. We shouldn't be talking about this in 15 years, like other things that have gone on that have been talked about, and this has been talked about for a long, long time. I think we got to put our feet to the fire and have some initiative and be the fourth largest county, look like it, act like it, because we're going to be that. So that's my comment, and I appreciate the discussion and the votes that took place in our affirming where we need to go.
Well, Commissioner Rather, I couldn't agree with you more, and this has to do with vision and who we are, understanding where we came from, embracing where we're at, but how are we going to get there? And so you're exactly on point. We got to be a body of vision, and this vote tonight is exactly what that demonstrates. So I appreciate your comments in that regard, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, and I thank this committee, because this is what citizens of this county are looking for commissioners to stand up and look out for their welfare, and that's what you did this evening. Any further business? If not, we wish you a Merry Christmas, and we are adjourned.